suspect for the fraud committed against Mr. Victoriano Santos.
Where did you...
Babe, ni nani?
Uninvited guest, baby.
Huwezi kukuhakikishia kuumia au kutoumia. Umuhimu atakuwa hai.
I am a professional businessman. Nakufahamu tena vizuri sana.
I want to talk to him now.
Hana!
Hana? Haya, Hana nini unaye? Mimi pia sina.
How can she be pregnant? I won't allow it. I won't.
Just calm down, he said. If anybody wants to hurt you or hurt our baby, I will not let them off. Not even the Empress.
Yesian is definitely testing the waters. I bet he has other plans.
You've been spoiled. How dare you talk back when I'm lecturing you?
A very good morning to you. My name is Daniel Wahome and welcome to Sports Check on this Monday morning. It is the 22nd day of November 2021. It's a day when we're going to be having conversations around sport. We're going to be talking about canoeing in rough waters, and also we're going to be talking about the hit squad boxing in Kenya, and also a conversation around football. But before that, what other conversations are we going to be keeping up with? We've got the Cabinet Secretary for Public Service, Professor Margaret Kobia, who's going to update on the drought situation and the food relief plan. This is expected to, this update is going to be given in Embakasi at the Inland Container Depot, and this is from 11 a.m. The Kenya e-commerce strategy and e-trade readiness multi-stakeholder consultations are taking place in Nairobi today. Plus also, there is also the ministerial inspection of projects, water and sanitation. So those are three news items that we are keeping up with in the country, and our news team is out there. We shall be teaming up and linking up with them as and when that information comes through. So that's what we have got lined up in the news. But right now, let's get straight into the conversations. And before I do that, let me introduce my sign language interpreter at the bottom right of your screen. His name is Byron Abuli. Now, if you are in high school or you've been to a sports field and you've heard this chant that goes something like, "A river Nyando is not navigable." They talk about Africa having all those rapids and cataracts in the rivers, but there are people who decided this is a good challenge and you can actually make a sport out of it. We're talking about whitewater canoeing. And we've got Kenya's top whitewater canoers on my immediate left. Samuel Muturi, he is a canoeist. He does what is known as wild water canoeing and also the Canoe Slalom. He's going to be telling us what the differences are and also what we've got here, part of the props, the helmet, this life jacket and how he uses it. Plus also, he's got something that looks like an apron. So he's going to talk about that. And on my far left, we've got the coach. His name is Titus Muturi. Welcome, gentlemen. And I'll start with you, Samuel. For you, reading your story, it started when you were 12 and you decided that you're going to start doing a little bit of canoeing and playing around with boats. How did that come about?
Oh, nice. So, I was living near the river Sagana. Then I used to swim around. Sometimes I could see people barging down with a raft, some in a kayak. And I was interested. So we had a canoe club around the area. So I asked my coach here and some other teammates. They told me I can join in. Then that's how I started.
Yeah. What has your journey been? Because you started when you were 12. It's now, what, 14 years on. What has it been like?
When I started it, I did it for about few months, 5 months. Then I stopped. Then after that, I joined back. After maybe like 2 years or more, I did some training. I had him as my coach. He trained me, and after that, I didn't do a big competition till 2015. That's when I did my big event. It was in Sagana, Africa qualifiers for Olympics. It was happening in 2016, Rio or something. Yeah,
Rio de Janeiro.
Yes. Then we didn't make it. Few things went wrong. Yeah.
So, Coach Titus,
yes.
Tell us about this kind of canoeing, because everyone knows about whitewater rafting. They do it as a recreational sport. But how is canoeing and how has it grown as a sport in this country and the places where it's possible to do this kind of sport?
Wow, yeah, I would say basically the same you have just mentioned is like, yes, it's so far the sport have developed actually, canoe kayak sports. Basically, which we are doing actually, it's more whitewater, which we call it slalom. And I would say yes, it has actually developed from where we started, because many people never thought about we can have such a kind of a sport. Even when we used to see about water sport, whitewater, we never thought about there is such kind of a sport. But once it was introduced the first time, when they were figuring out where they could start the sport, it was a better for a company which was also learning whitewater, which basically means the same thing. So when they started at Sagana, when they came, we joined that time, and then it was difficult, tough, though we had a basic know-how about the kayaking, but we never knew about the slalom. So I would say yes, we have developed from so far where we are. At least we can now contest with the international company, I mean international nations for the slalom, because this is a Europe sport or maybe a developed country sport. We never thought about such a kind of the sport, but when now so far what we have developed so far, at least we are saying we are getting there at the same times.
Now, Coach, you mentioned what that people would not understand. You're talking about first of all, the equipment used, a canoe. You talk about canoe kayaking.
Yes.
Now, the difference between a canoe and a kayak. Explain to us that.
Okay, difference between canoe kayak, the one especially we are doing actually is, let me just say, when kayak actually is using two braid paddles, the canoe is just using a single paddle. And we also have a canoe which you do it on the flat water and the white water. So it doesn't matter which, but once you...
Flat water is the one where, you know, they roll like the one
that's rowing now, which they use the other thing. But canoe kayak, you can also have like, there is a rowing which you do, like you're doing backwards and using single braid paddle.
Yes.
But any canoe has it's a row, actually it has two braided paddles.
Yes.
So that is now canoe, kayak.
Okay.
And it can be either for white water or flat water. Then we're also doing like a single, whereby we're also using one single paddle.
So if we talk about Suluhu, who was at the Paralympics, she does flat water.
Yes.
So white water is where you've got the rapid.
We have the rapid now. Now you're going down the rivers. Or the big water volume drops and sort of things. So now you have to have you have to use a canoe kayak. So that means it is a different in terms of how it has a different perspective in terms of the science how it was built. But the flat water, because just water which is flat, that we're using now just a single paddle. But for the canoe kayak now we're using two braided paddle, which it is a row paddle.
So for you, which did you start with? Muturi?
I started with K1, that's the kayak one.
Okay.
The two-bladed paddle, and you are sitting in it.
All right.
So it was hard to start with, but later on I started doing the C1. The C1, you are on your knees in it, then you have to do up the space cut, like the one I'm having.
All right, by the way, you can stand up so that people can see, because I mentioned about an apron. So this is now the protective kit that you have.
Yep.
So what's the function of this?
So the reason why we normally use it, it's to cover the cockpit, so that the water doesn't get in the kayak. So the helmet, to avoid hitting on the rocks and all this, life jacket will keep you floating every time you fall in the water or you are swimming.
Okay, yeah, because this is a helmet, you can actually hold up the life jacket.
Life jacket.
So this is it inflatable?
No, we have like foam in it. You can't go down. You can't see.
So you've mentioned about K1 and K2. 2015 you were there. Then in 2019 you represent the country, and this is what I'd like to come into some of your competitions. In 2019 you were in 2 championships which I would like you to talk about. Canoe Slalom. Coach, tell us about the slalom and how it works.
Okay, the slalom actually is it's a competition where they set up the gate with a certain distance, about to 500 meter or less. They set up a gate along the rapids. They have only 2 type of gates, which is the 2 poles suspended on the river. The black and white, the white, red and white basically means is the upstream gate. Then we have a downstream gate. So within that course, they make a course more difficult because it's like you have to negotiate through those gates. So downstream and upstream gate. So
explain how they work. Downstream is where the direction of the water.
Yes.
So how do you go through the downstream?
So the downstream actually is where you are approaching the gate down. You just come straight down in the gate. That is a downstream gate.
Yes.
So the upstream means you're coming, then you have to approach it from the down up, and then you negotiate in, and then you go down. So it's kind of throwing you down somehow as you approach it. And sometimes where they set it, they must be having a drop of maybe for 3 meters. The highest one, like they have just done, they have just finished a very big course whereby the course is about 5 meter drop, which is basically, it's a big course and also depend with the volumes. So this is where they set up, that is the slalom course which we have.
All right, and if you would like to see, as you can see, those are the pictures and that's in action. So those are the drops. So you said the red and white are the down.
Yes.
If it's a different color,
yes,
then you've got to go now round it.
Yes.
Now, the first time you were there, and this was in the heat, you were ranked, 99th. That was in 2019, and this was in Spain. What was your experience from that first ride over when you were doing the slalom?
So, first thing, I've never been to abroad before. Like, that was my first time. Then I have never experienced such cold water. So it was tough for me.
You're from Sagana. That place can get cold in July.
Not like where I was. And also, I was scared to see like New River. I have never been there. And I can see some people are so good in it. And to start with, I was scared. But after a few runs on the course, I was okay.
Now, for you, your score at that point, 152.06. Tell us how they do score for you as you go down that river and through the gates, down and up.
So, they normally take time. The less time, we win. And you have to go through all the gates, no missing, no touching. If you miss a gate, it's about 50 seconds penalty. They're gonna add it on your time. Then if you touch, you have 2 minutes penalty. 2 seconds penalty. So no touching, no missing. And you have to be fast, so to beat the others for sure.
So Muturi, now you could tell as you go down, then how, for example, how do you now going through those rapids? What are the things that someone needs to know? For example, physically, and also how you, like we've been told about the upstream gates, how you're able to navigate around them.
So you have to read water. You know where the eddies are or how to move, maybe behind the rocks and all this. You have to be somehow experienced and know how to control the kayak and using the paddles and all this.
Coach, yes. Then from the 2019 experience from the slalom,
yes,
what were the learning lessons for for Kenya and for Muturi from that championship?
I would say yes, there was improvement actually after he was the first time experiencing in Europe actually, and you see there is a big challenge, as you mentioned, about Sagana. Actually, it's warm even during June time. Actually, if you look, the altitude there is actually, we are in the lowest part of Sagana, so that means even when it's June, it's not that very cold.
So basically what you're talking about is we think Sagana it's an optical illusion.
Yes, yes, actually. If actually where we're going, actually, if you look, that particular thing there's almost the same. Actually, it's always very hot, even that particular thing in Sagana. Because you see, we are just, where we are doing, especially the activity, where we have the rapids, is actually just part of it actually on Mwea. So you can know Mwea actually is hot because they also going right. So my point actually, which I'm giving about what reason that actually lent there is the challenge that we faced. We tried to improve the skills because that was the first time for him to have an experience. Because for the slalom is about a mental thing, number one. Because as you have to read the water, because every time they change the water, it's different every time, and you have to prepare yourself mentally and to understand the course, to know the lines and all those things, where do you need to follow. So when we came back, we had to work a lot about that, and also the skill in terms of how to negotiate, because once they say change the gates in different levels, and even if you had an experience with the other place, you must run the course at that particular time to understand that thing. So that is what we try to improve for him.
All right, you've mentioned, so they keep changing the gates, which means no two canoeists go through the same course.
Okay, I'm not talking about that particular level. I'm saying anytime there is a competition,
yes,
they have to change the course and the water. And you see the natural science about water, every time there is a water, even if they send the gate the same place, it will be different. Lines, okay, despite the fact they have the same line maybe you're going, it's always change. So for example, is like for you to master several other skills for moving, you have to have a lot of experience to understand when this is being changed, this one, then the line will be here. So by the time you figure out that, and if I have been the skill about competition actually to master those things. And you see, we have all what it takes to go through those things.
Yes.
But now what may be lacking is experience to have that kind of the thing, because even when we're having it Europe every other time, like now they're having competition, one and then in the same location. So by the time they set up the competition, so they make like 4 or 5 course during that year. So when you're setting up a course, it's the first time when you're meeting that course. So then if you don't have a master a course for different course at the same times, it's a challenge. So that's what we tried when we came back here. We tried to improve in that skills in course different levels depending on the competitions.
Also in Spain at Lascaux, Muturi, you also did the wild water canoeing. Now tell us the difference between wild water and slalom.
Okay, with the wild water, it's a long canoe, but there is a C1 as well and a K1 on wild water. I didn't try the C1. The C1, again, you go on your knees, and the K1, you sit and you have to brake.
It's like in a Formula 1 car.
Yeah, but it's long, it's hard for you to control it. Going on those corners, it's hard as well. That was my first time to do it. I went there, I felt like, oh, they are doing this. I said, like, I want to try it. But that was my first time to do it. And
what's the key difference between this, the wild water and the slalom?
With the slalom, it's easy for me to turn, or for everyone to turn. With the wild water,
do they have gates here?
For the wild water, you just go down, speed, and that's it.
What's the he's mentioned for him that it's easier to do the the slalom than to do the wild water. What are the key things?
Okay, let me say the wild water actually is not actually in the Olympic now, but they do it as a practical things to do the programs.
Yes.
But in some country like Germany, they are doing it. You see, all these things actually is they are empowering the skills in terms of the speed, because that boat is difficult to turn. It's long boats. But what they do is actually working the concept for the speed. When you're moving with that boat, and when most likely after they finish, you see they have also that kind of the competition to improve their skill in terms of the speed. So every time they're doing also the competition, they don't dwell only for the slalom only. So they use also different boats just to improve their also level of their skills. So that's why you see in Europe actually after that they do the white water, they do the wild kayak, and also they do also for the competition, though it is not in the Olympic discipline, maybe one day to be, but it's also good for the speed work and also for how you can able, because it's a very unstable compared to the slalom, so it also develop your stability when it comes to the turns and other things. So it also improve the skill for the athlete at the same time.
Now, I want to come into something. The 2021 championships in Slovakia, you're in Bratislava, and there was a K1 and there was also the C1. You performed better in the C1. What's the difference when you go and paddle through in that canoe? The C1, you've mentioned that you're kneeling on that. It looked like it's much better for you when you're doing the C1 than the K1, where you are, fully seated in the boat.
So my coach here, I think he spotted me. Maybe I can be better in C1. That's why I'm trying it. And for the C1, we doesn't have like many paddlers. Mostly in Africa, we have a few. And he saw like potential, and maybe I can be good in it and beat the other people's. So
C1, what makes him good in C1?
Okay, now by the way, becoming coaches now, what I've learned a lot basically is actually, you see, especially what you're looking now, we have other people, other athletes and other things. Also you look in terms of the posture, the size and other different things. He's a very good now. Okay, because we were only doing the K1 before, but if we look now who actually can do 1, 2, 3, 4, he is a very good in C1. Until I told him, you are very good in C1. Because when I look at the structure, because it also requires somebody who is a bit more smarter, is taller, because he's also kneeling, and then the hands, you have to look all those kind of the art, particularly for the athletes. So he's good on that. And that's why I was telling him, I think for K1, maybe you need to shift to the C1. I see a good performance in C1, and even
actually, numbers speak for themselves. In the first heat, 171.07, that was your score, and ranked 51st. In the second heat, 167.81, ranked 30th. What was that for you, moving up 21 ranks?
Ask me again, please.
Moving up 21 ranks. Hit 1, you are ranked 51st. Hit 2, 30.
Every time when we are competing, we have like route for everyone, coming down, reducing the number of the athletes. So that's how we did it. I can't remember the
51 in hit one.
In hit one. The second one, some people will drop out. They are not coming in. So I think that's how I beat them.
For the K1, also ranked 44th, how much of an improvement did you see yourself having as compared to 2019 in Lasu and your performance in Bratislava in September?
In Lasu, it was World Championship.
Yes.
And also we had very many people competing. Then in Bratislava, I think many people didn't turn up, mostly Africa countries. Some of them, they didn't turn up, maybe.
Coach, he's mentioned Africa enough times. What's the canoeing scene in Africa?
Wow, it's a big challenge actually we are facing, especially in Africa. If you can ask actually why we went all the way to compete for the Africa qualifier in Europe, not actually in Kenya, in Africa.
The African qualifiers were in Europe.
Yes.
Why?
So
it's not the only one I know, because I think also rugby are taking Africa qualifiers to France.
Yes, so that is one of the major challenges that we are also having, because we need to build up also our systems in Africa to make sure we also have a spot, and that's why it's been even when we're getting up ourselves to that positions, where we are taking the advantage, because we want to say we are not looking there only to qualify to go to the Olympic. We're also fighting for the medals. We also want to compete with all those international competition. But having said that, we also require to have our competition within our place. So we have that kind of the challenge, because also have been having misukosuko hapa na pale, even for the continental, and that caused a lot of challenge. So many other countries, like for example Kenya, now we are in better positions. I think South Africa, for us even to host such a kind of event. So that's why you find even when we have such a kind of programs, we don't have many other African people coming to compete. In fact, we will say we are pure considering to the other people who are competing, because you find when you go to Europe or any other place, you find people who living in UK, you living in France, you living in those Europe, they came from Africa, but they are competing for Africa simply because they have a dual citizenship. So Kenya, we're in a better positions, maybe in South Africa, though they've been having challenge because when our organization maybe in a CAF, it's not maybe for the, that is Africa Canoe Federations, been having hiccup here and there. But all this, those are the things that we should maybe fight to make sure, even when you have a continental, you should not go to Europe, should be in Africa.
Which place would we do, for example, a good slalom course? If you were to talk about Kenya, which are the places? I know there is a whole focus on Sagana. Which other places can we have this?
Wow, it's good questions, but basically for me as a coach, I would say as long as any place where we have river, we have rapids, it is possible to have slalom course, not only Sagana. That is where actually we started, because we have a good rapid, we have good other things. But as long as we have rivers and we have rapids, it's accessible, it's good, we can have a slalom course.
The national scene, tell us where there is interest around this, because I know the Sagana, I mean, there are people who've advertised heavily for the tourism market.
Yes.
But competitively, where would you like to see the sport looking at the rivers? We know the rivers in Kenya are very easy to identify.
Yes.
If you go towards Tana rivers, you go south, the rivers become smoother, so they've got fewer rapids. But what about out west?
Yes, that would be another potential place. I think you just came from the Western?
I was in
You just came from the Western? When they were there just exploring, because apart from doing the sports, we also do kayaking as a leisure, and also as part of living at the same times, and also exploring different live at the same times. I've also done a lot of in Western. It's a superb, nice place there. It is a beautiful place where you can do kayaking in Western. And
which place is it specifically?
I not be very specific rivers, but I know basically we have been done it, especially maybe he can explain further where it is, she was actually. But maybe there is those rivers actually have white water, because maybe the names I may not be able to recognize where he's at. But yes, we have places where we can.
I can talk about Nyando. There's Rivanzoya, there's Yala. Where were you?
I was in Yala, Kakamega Forest. We started from, can't remember the certain bridge going down. It was about 25 kilometers going downstream. So we did the whole of Kakamega Forest all the way to the end. Yeah.
2 weeks ago. Maybe it's about 2 weeks ago.
About 1.5 weeks ago. Yeah.
What was it like going through that river as compared to what you have got normally? I mean, where you've grown up?
Mostly down there we have maybe grade 5 rapids, and I have never done it before. So you have to read the water and learn the rapids.
Now we are going to have a geography lesson on SportsCheck. Muturi, tell us about the grades, because you've talked about a grade 5 rapid. Tell us about those, which means there must be grade 4, grade 3, grade 2, and grade 1. Tell us about those things.
Okay, we normally start with flat water. The water is not moving at all. Grade 1, some few waves and no big rapids. And grade 2, you go for you can see big waves, some rocks, and they are creating some maybe stoppers and all this. Some water is turning back to upstream side. And grade 3, you go on those big drops for about, let's say, a meter drop, and going to maybe 1.5 meter drop. That goes to grade maybe 3 plus to 4. Then you have those big stuffs, maybe about 3 to 4 meters. They become grade 4, heading up to grade 6. We normally learn every rapid, which is up to grade 6. Over grade 7, we don't do them.
That's something close to, you'd consider that a small waterfall?
Yeah.
That's what you'd consider it. Equipment-wise, the boats that we use here as compared to the boats that are used in international competitions, how different are they?
Absolutely a big difference. A big difference, because you find you also have to master the boats. as an athlete, especially when you are competing for the Olympic. You know, there is because of the competition, like in Europe, you find many people they are doing kayaking and other things. For them to identify who will represent them, it is a high competition. So therefore, they have to consider also the equipment. So yes, equipment is a factor to consider. Where, like for example, if I say even what to your lucky now we have now 2 boats which came, but when you check the 2 boats that came actually, and even for the people who are competing, they are not. You cannot even compare. They are good boats basically, but in terms of the artwork, the way they are supposed to go in water, because they keep on developing those boats every year. So every year they have to produce a new boat which they'll be competing for that particular. So it's very expensive, so we don't afford such a kind of boat. So we're already using, in fact, what you've been using before is what we got in 2008. We've been maintaining those boats for us to have those particular boats. So even that is another challenges actually we find. So, but compare with the other side is like if you have a good exposure and you want also to compete for that level, it's good to have equipment that will be competing like every other nation. They make sure, like for example, like those big countries, they have their own boats. Like every year they have new boats which they are launching for, and they have different. I mean, like the latest boat that we saw in Spain. Wow, just amazing. And because we are not qualified for that, we just get water. But as long as we have a skill, we just do with what we have.
Then, for you, describe the boat in terms of the length, and you know how it is set up. For the C1 where you paddle when you're kneeling, and for the K1 where you paddle when you are fully seated in the boat.
So once you slide in the kayak, that's the K1, we have like footrest. You have to adjust it according to your height. Then you have to use your knees. We have something we call it kneecaps. You have to sit in a certain diamond shape. Then something at your back, we call it backrest, to just keep you straight. We know we don't lean on the kayak. You have to sit upright. The length is about 3 meters, and they do check the size every time you are doing the competition. And the weight as well, they normally take 9 kgs. Yeah.
That is for the K1 and for the
even C1.
And C1. Yeah. And what about the height? Because at least we know it's about 3 meters, 9 kilos. How big is it? How would
let's say
it's actually one foot and a half, because it's actually from where you're sitting. It's actually, it has to be within the water. So, and where you're sitting actually. So it's actually maybe a foot, maybe I'll call it. Yeah.
The other thing that we've seen is international federations and also global federations, like the IOC. They usually drop grants for development. What the Kenya Canoeing Federation, what are the opportunities that are there that have come from the International Canoeing Federation and also the IOC through the National Olympic Committee of Kenya?
Wow, it's a technical question, basically, but I mean, we have to speak it actually the way it is. Yes, we first of all, we'd like to appreciate the most likely through International Canoe Federation, because they also, as it comes to the now IOC, or International Olympic Committee, then there is ICF, like as we under the ICF, International Canoe Federation, and which they've been doing a lot of support, especially, let me say, even for the trip that we always go. Sometimes they, like for example, they offer us with the tickets, because sometimes we have a challenge, we don't have maybe we have a constraint in terms of the funds. So especially when you have such an event and we have such a candidate they know about in terms of rank, because they look the rank and say, wow, they should have this particular participant come for this particular event, because we see a lot of potential. And sometimes maybe because of the constraint of the funds, so the ICF, they most likely, especially for the last event that we have been, they've been paying for the ticket for the team, because we didn't have a lot of fund on the other side. So, but however, yes, I would say we have been receiving the support from the international, because once they identify there is a potential and they see there is a big potential coming that way, they do contribute actually a lot. Of course, the ministry and other things, they also help here and there. But yes, that is what we've been receiving. So we'd like to appreciate, by the way, a lot of support from the International Canoe Federation and also IOC for that we recognize that what actually they do, especially for Wachezanji. When we have we start, we don't have a ticket and everything, and say, okay, if it's not a ticket, we can provide, and we have been having those things, and we appreciate so much.
For you, when you compete against people who are in Europe and they do this, I was reading up, and some of the things you're saying is your speed of turning around the gates when you're doing the slalom is a big challenge. But they seem to, but from what they're saying, the assessment is at the straight you can really, go, you can roll down the straight. But then when it comes to the gates, it's a little bit of a challenge. What are some of the things that you've been told in Slovakia?
Okay, I have been doing lots of like whitewater kayaks. We call it creek boating. Doing all these big stuff. So maybe I'm good in endurance. I can paddle fast for a long time as well. But turnings with the slalom, you have to be sitting in it almost every day. And also you need to have like different courses for you to try them and try all the gates going down and turnings on the upstream gates. That's the challenge.
So coach, how do you then set up this for him to train so that that gap in his skill set is filled?
So that's why we are saying most likely what you have there, the course is not very enough, but that is we are using what actually have. That's the most important things. Let me give an example. The people now who are actually competing now, focusing, because this is our target in terms of the next Olympic. Of course we have other people, but in terms of ranking, and we understand this is what we are looking. So why even now we wish to have a scholarship, because what now is happening for any other person who is competing for the slalom for the next Olympic, if you compare with him, he will tell you how many courses he will do within 1 year, and you come and say if you only have one course, you'll see a big difference. So as you're saying, in terms of improving skills, you require a lot of courses, and that's why you see they are so much exposed to different courses in where you go into those places. There is a big competition. They keep on moving around, doing a lot of training. So yes, having more courses, it is better because it's keep on improving your skill, and every time you make sure every day, maybe 1 or 2 hours you're in the water. So us is like we only have one course here. Even if you be there, most likely you'll be only maybe running one particular skills. But there you see they exposed to different courses. That's why we look, especially once we find somebody like him, would like to have a scholarship, for example, for the time, maybe before that, for him, as long as we know this is a talent, this is a thing that we need to bring, so he need to expose to those different places and then to train. Especially now it's in France, they have a big courses in different places, so you can keep on rotating in different courses. That is one of the things. So as well, yes, we train here with what we have, but as well, once we identify because of the competition is Olympic material, then I would say we still don't have enough courses to expose this one. We need more exposure.
Let me just throw it back to him. From what you saw in Kakamega Forest, when you are doing what is it called?
It's creek boating, river trip.
Yeah, that creek boating. Yeah. How did you find that river as compared to what you're doing with this particular sport?
In River Yara is good more than like way far up than the one we normally do here. So, but the thing is, on a certain stretch, we have some animals, hippos. So sometimes it's a challenge to set maybe a course in a certain place. Yeah.
By the way, you mentioned that because you're setting up a course, there is the factor of the distance. So how long is a slalom course, including the gates?
It's about 200 to 250 meters, or like 300 more or less. Then they have to set maybe about 25 gates, maybe half, like 10 to 15 they are downstream and 10 are upstream gates. So
that means every 30 meters you're having to go through one gate or turn around it?
Yeah, even more.
Or even more.
Yeah.
Now, the next thing is attracting more people to this sport. What needs to be done, coach? Because already we've seen, for example, he's mentioned Rivayala. The sections that are there, it's a 300-meter course that you can create, or say a shorter one, for the opportunities that are there. You can think of Rivayala, the famous Rivanyando.
Yes, there is many opportunities. Even I have also done Rivayala, Kakamega, as we explore, but long time not now. Also in Meru, in a side of Meru also. We have many places actually where we have a lot of potential to do this. That is one of the other challenges about where you're setting up the course. You have to mind about the animal, wildlife animal like hippo and other things. So that's the key thing. But there is where we have white water most likely. And there is a way we check in terms of, for example, why Sagana, you ask yourself where we do that, where there's no hippo, there's no crocodiles. But I'll tell you the reason, most likely for the white water and also for the water temperature, it push them to different dimension at the same time. So it's not possible to find those things there.
So they prefer cold water?
Yes, they prefer warm water.
Warm water.
Yes, you see, in Sagana, it's very, very unique because I said it's a raw place, but you see we have two water coming from Abadeas and also from Mount Kenya.
Yes.
So it's coming down. So along where we have the rapids, the water is still cold. So you find as you go down, further down, yes, there is also a place we can find rapids and a good place, but there's no accessibility. So what I would say, maybe the solution for this, because we have resources, we have other things, is we bring maybe like, for example, where we are in Sagana, we have different private investors who are doing also whitewater as a commercial. Once they identify the different place, number one is it can, most of the courses actually they're being built, or maybe they are like a built by, is like a artificial kind of, they develop them in what they want to do. It's the same thing. So once you identify the place, then it requires that kind of a setup whereby it have to be developed. And then you see, once you set up different things at the same time, you know, okay, this place is terribly invested with the animal, so we can maybe migrate them to different places at the same time. But that is for the future long term, as long as there is will to do what particular things. That is one thing. The second thing I would say very important, even for development, which I'm also doing now, is actually because I have found out when you're doing kayaking, one of the principles to understand when you're training you have to know how to swim. And many people who even come to do those things, they don't know how to swim. So you see, you start now from teaching them how to do swimming. So what we're looking is like we start up programs into different areas, even when they don't have a lot of water, starting swimming as a basics. Even though they will not go to the Olympic, but as maybe they will develop a certain interest in terms of they know how to swim, they can also do other activity for the water. So that's what you're saying, because when you streamline in the white water, maybe people when you see that water, what they're doing, you get scared. But now what I'm saying, for us to develop this sport from the beginning, you have now to make it to wider. It doesn't matter whether there is big water or there is small water. If it's flat water, you can start from there. Number one, you start a program maybe for training people about swimming, especially in the school, so people they keep on learning about these programs. Maybe from there they also develop interest about canoe, kayak and other things.
So people who are afraid of water that is in excess of 1 bucket, please don't, there is a lesson in swimming that can come for you. Yes. Now Muturi, I want to talk about your teammates, because Kenya is a team, and the kind of competition that you've got in the country.
Okay, now mostly we have like my workmates and some other peoples. We do work together, and also we do slalom together. With the other team, we normally explore some new rivers, and we help each other on gate setting and all this. We support each other on all those kind of things.
Majina ya hawa wachezaji.
Oh, we have
in the national team people who don't this same kit.
Okay, we have Daniel Chomba. Oh, we normally call him Batista. That's his nickname. And we have.
Why do you call him Batista after the wrestler? Is he that huge?
He's somehow huge. He got muscles, and he's a good man. And we have Levis Peter. He's a young padra, and he's developing skills. He's doing well. And we have some
for Chomba, aka Batista. Yeah. What's he good in? The K1 where you sit, or the C1 where you're kneeling?
He's good in K1. He was doing it more long time ago, but now he's saying that he's like becoming old. He wanna be more like a coach. We are doing the same with him. I'm almost heading there.
Yes.
And we have.
I mean, at 26, still have another 5 years.
That's what I want to try. Maybe in the next Olympics, I want to see whether I will make it. If I don't, we're still training some young padras, and they are good in it.
All right. Levis
Peter. We have Alphax at minor, and some other young people. We have a certain boy. He's about 13. and he's growing well in kayaking. His name is Alno, and we have so many people. Even
girls
even
as well.
some girls. We have like some a certain girl known as Jerry and Brenda and so many others.
Then, what are the sporting opportunities for Kenya that are available between now? There's the Commonwealth Games coming, there's the African qualifiers for the Olympics coming, and Paris 2024. What there in between?
Yes, we at the moment we're looking forward to work for the Youth Olympic actually. That is catching for us now.
The next Youth Olympics are in Senegal 2026.
The Youth Olympic?
Yes.
It's coming after every 2 years. After the Olympic is actually...
Yes, because it was supposed to be in Senegal, but I think it's been delayed.
It's been okay,
yes.
Fine. That was actually our target, but maybe if there was that kind of a change, that is what you're working on. But every time is like, every year we have like World Championships. What you're looking is like, because our main target is about Olympic, and we have high prospect actually, let me say, with Sami, and also other people who are coming, like the upcoming, but because that's our main target at the same times. But we still have our World Championships, which keep on developing in skills, which give more rank in terms of the slalom. So at the moment we have the next World Championship, Slalom World Championship, which is we would like to engage our young people.
When is the next World Championship?
The next World Championship, it will be on the next year actually, on
September next year.
Yes, September next year.
It might happen.
That is actually next year. But we still have World Cup, because there is a World Championship and also World Cup. So the World Cup actually, it's within the Europe Cups. Which they do those basically, you don't have to, but most likely they also give us an opportunity if you'd like to participate for this thing. But we find it a good thing if there is a finance for that particular things, just to advance more skills for those particular things. We don't attend 4 of them, but at least most likely World Championship, because for the World Championship we have a chance for the ICF and IOC to sponsor in terms of the ticket and other things, accommodation, things like that.
The World Cup series provides more opportunities. Has the Kenya Canoeing Federation, made an approach such that the prospects are there? I have seen some other sports where athletes have been partnered with another federation or a country where the sport is good, and so that their talent can be, their skill set can grow, so that you stop simply saying this one's talented, but now this one's properly skilled.
Yes, I would say maybe the moment of what the federation, despite the fact that maybe the just technical challenges which have been there, but if they just see it as an opportunity, because if you ask ourselves, in 2008 and 2015 we had an Africa Championship in Kenya. It's a big opportunity whereby it will create a platform that will just make a lot of skills now to develop, whereby we can even having them coming to our country. I remember in 2008 yes, when the first time we had group from America, from Europe, they just came for the event. In fact, that is another way of attracting tourism. Basically, if you have such an event, hosting them in Kenya rather than going to Europe, especially for the continental Africa, it will create a big avenue. And you see, there is many people who come, skills, we have to learn a lot of skills, because there is many other athletes who would like to come to compete in Kenya. Maybe they have never been to Kenya. They'll say, oh, I want to go there competing, for also to be in Kenya, also to be in Africa. So it's also excited for them. So it's on a platform where if the federation, I think they are working hard to see such kind of opportunity. Anytime we have such an opportunity to prepare for such an event, we have all what it takes, because we have an athlete, we have maybe the boats. It's only just by the goodwill of the leaders, and then I think we can have a good thing here.
All right, now as we close, Muturi, what's your target? There is the Paris Olympics in 2024. What's your target, plus also for your teammates? Because it will be good to have not just one Kenyan. We don't even mind having 4 Kenyans participating in Canoe Slalom out there.
So since we got like some 2 new kayaks, and the ones we had, we are training hard, and we have been doing like 4-5 training per week, and we also train these young peoples, every week. Most of them are in school, but we are trying to have maybe one session per week.
That's over the weekends, definitely.
Yeah. So my target is to be in Olympics in Paris 2024, and that would be good for me.
All right, there you've had it from Samuel Muturi. He is a slalom canoeist. He represents the country, and he was at the World Championships in Bratislava, Slovakia in September, improving his ranking with a target for the Olympic Games. And also on the far left, we've got Coach Titus Mukundi. Thank you very much, Titus and Sami, and we wish you all the best. And for those of you who are afraid of water that is in excess of a bucket, learn how to swim, and the next thing you will be doing canoeing and kayaking in the white waters of the country. And we've learned that out west you've got River Nyando, you've got River Yala. They can actually provide great things, and Kakamega Forest has a section that can actually be exciting and can offer a challenge. Thank you very much, gentlemen, and wish you all the best. Well, we'll be taking a short break now, and when we get back, let's talk about the sweet science, boxing. The next year, Kenya's boxing teams have got a lot of activities. There is the Women's World Championship that's going to take place in Istanbul, Turkey. We have got the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, England, and also we've got the African Championships. The teams that are going to represent the country at that point are going to be selected. Part of the selection happened over the weekend. There is one more chance for you to break into the national team. For that and more conversations, we shall be joined by the coach of the Heat squad, Musa Benjamin, at the end of this short break.
She be pregnant! I won't allow it! I won't!
Just calm down, he said. If anybody wants to hurt you or hurt our baby, I will not let them off. Not even the Empress.
Yesyen is definitely testing the waters. I bet he has other plans.
You've been spoiled. How dare you talk back when I'm lecturing you?
那一人那一面，也不愿你我错过的流年。某一年。
The Amazons did not want me to find you here gambling. I'm telling you, you're not going anywhere. You are staying. Vicente lost the ranch because of Madame Bernarda.
Prosecution accepts the evidence and requests that an arrest warrant be issued against Mr. Julio Flores, who is now the main suspect for the fraud committed against Mr. Victoriano Santos.
Where did she go?
I don't know. We've been looking for her. Where do you think you're going with her?
I'm not going to tell you.
You'll never break us apart.
Abantu ba Mintombo ya More. Your favorite Ekegusi station, Minto FM, is now at your doorstep. Enjoy the hottest Kisi music, informative and entertaining shows, and reliable news only on Minto FM. Tune in to Minto FM on 91.7 FM in Nyamira, Kisii, and its environs. Minto FM in Nyamira. Log on to the KBC website at www.kbc.co.ke to get the latest breaking news, entertainment, sports, politics, lifestyle or business trends from Kenya and around the world. Never miss new episodes from your favorite TV shows, reruns and movies. Just stream online or watch live on your YouTube channel at KBC Channel 1 TV shows. For the day's biggest stories, trustworthy news and family entertainment, log on to KBC Channel 1. Watch what you want anytime, anywhere.
You'll be watching as we wine and dine, and you will know you made a wrong gonna get in line.
Stay with me, baby. If the world was ending, you'd come over, right? You'd come over and you'd stay the night. Camping sweet, everybody wanna feel like it. Long time on a DJ in a dance, a long time on a chant in a dance. So we think stay, so we think stay down. So we think stay, so we think stay down. So the thing said, so the thing said, I saw the thing said.
The match up them out, we not fear them. Bang, boom, bang, boom, bang, boom, bang, fear them.
Welcome back to Sports Check on this Monday morning. It is the 22nd day of November 2021. We've had a conversation about water sport, canoeing to be specific, and now we're moving on to the sweet science. That's what they call boxing, a sport that they say nobody plays. But also, we are keeping up with what's in the news, and Cabinet Secretary for Public Service, Professor Margaret Kobia, is going to update the country on the drought situation and the food relief plan. This is going to take place at the Internal Container Depot in Embakasi. The Kenya e-commerce strategy and e-trade readiness multi-stakeholder consultations are taking place in Nairobi. Plus also, we've got the ongoing ministerial inspection of projects, water and sanitation. A report on that is going to be given to us. Plus also conversations right now about boxing and moving on to football later. Plus all the developing stories in the country. Well, let me just put a background to this. Over the weekend, actually started on Wednesday, 4 days of boxing at amateur level. 26 teams participating in the Jamal Cup. What ideally would have been the Kenya Open Boxing Championship, but it's been a championship over 4 days. The finals were on Saturday at Nairobi's Charter Hall. The objective of this is to select a national team that's going to represent the country at the Women's World Championship. That was delayed, was supposed to have been going on this month, but has been moved to March in Istanbul, Turkey. We've got the African Championships and also the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, England next year. And also, interesting enough, it comes in the background of the World Championships for the men that were in Belgrade. Let's now get into a conversation with the coach of the Heat squad. He's observed that, and he has got still to work with boxers. It doesn't matter that the championships are done. Musa Benjamin. Musa, thank you very much for your time this morning. Musa, first, let's start with the World Championships in Belgrade. That was the same city where Steve Mushoki won Kenya's only amateur gold in boxing. What was the experience there?
I think it was a very good and interesting outing for our boxers. Very good exposure, especially for those who are new in the team, those who had only had 2 outings to representing our country. So in a nutshell, I would say it was an invaluable experience.
What we saw from AIBA, the global boxing body, was the introduction of new weights. We have something like minimum weight, we have the cruiserweight,
light middleweight,
and the light middle.
Yes.
What's that change in the weight divisions? What does it mean for amateur boxers in the country?
It's very good. Apart from giving other more boxers chances to represent our nation, it also bridges that weight difference that was there before. The difference was so high, and it could have affected the health of our boxers as well, and all the other boxers notwithstanding. So I think it's a good thing. Now we have 13 weights categories. We're actually going back to what we used to have in the earlier days, because we used to have 12 weight categories, except that now cruiserweight. All the rest have just come back. So it's a good thing.
For those who got exposure, think of something like the minimum weight, up to 48 kgs.
Yeah.
What learning lessons did you see from that division, which has got, it's very fast. It's not powerful like you'd see in the middleweight upwards, but they're quite fast.
The speed is quite high, of course, due to the weight, no doubt about that. But you don't just need to have that speed. You also need to have good movement and precision while punching, so that with that, I think we have boys who are going to be able to clinch, get medals in the coming events in the minimum weight. I think we're okay in that weight. Remember, that's where even Steve Mushoki won a gold medal in the 1978 World Championships.
Well, and also, the good thing is Steve Mushoki got his certificate because the previous one was damaged. What were the stories you heard about Mushoki when you were in Belgrade?
Oh, it was really, really nice to, while walking on the streets and guys just recognize you because of the country, and they go Mushoki, Mushoki. They were actually chanting the name of Mushoki when we were there. In the streets, in the shopping malls, it was really a good feeling on behalf of Mushoki, of course. And on behalf of BFK, I think he was a good ambassador. And he set standards so high that we need to emulate. We need to do another Mushoki. Yes.
Oh, and talking about amateur boxing, global goals that we've had after that: 1988, the Olympic gold medal by the late Robert Wangila Napunyi, and also Omar Kasongo at the Commonwealth Games. Plus also, and Frank, I think you can get us this picture, this video that we saw from Belgrade, where we saw a foreign coach after Kenyan boxers were eliminated. They got in. The thing about sport is we are competitors, but after that, skills sharing is there. We can get that video and we can actually see a Kenyan boxer, getting a little bit of training from some of the European coaches. What were the things that they noted about our boxers and told you to change?
Well, the most important thing that they told us is to make sure that we take part in many events, because that they don't see us in those competitions. Mm-hmm. So, because they noticed that we have very good boxers, technically and tactically. So the difference was pretty small. The margin of, you'd say, the losses were not that bad. Compared to the standards that was expected of us guys who have not been participating in this kind of events. So we trained with most of these teams. They were actually coming to our training camp to train with us, even for those who are still going on in the competition for the quarterfinals and semi-finals later on. And I think it's because they realized or recognized that we have that talent. So there are a few things about movement and some rules that have changed, but have not changed in the rule and regulations book. So there are things that have changed or keep changing every time they have these tournaments. So they were clear. It was very clear that Africa will remain behind if we don't compete in this or take part in these competitions regularly.
Tell us about the rules and regulations in boxing that have changed and have impacted on the performance of the national team.
I'll give you an example of scoring criteria. One of the scoring criteria is a correct punch with force behind. Now what they're doing is they're not following that. Because of the speed that is there now, you find that even tapping is still a score. Otherwise, before it was the punch had to have power behind for it to be a score. So you see, those are the changes that are there. Some of the changes that are there, but have not been changed in the rule book. Even at the technical meeting, they still tell you that a scoring blow is a blow that will have force behind. But at the real thing, even tapping is scoring. So those are some of those changes, little changes that affect our scoring. Because you go for power like you've been told, but then at the end you realize that you can even tap and still end up the winner. Yes.
Now the other thing is the 10 best system is there, but we use there's a 5-judge scoring.
Yeah.
How are we adopting to that? Because I know for a long time locally there's the random computerized where you pick a random 3 of the 5.
Yeah.
Tell us about that part of the game.
We are actually yet to get locally to get the AIBA scoring system, but BFK has already ordered for one, so we are waiting for it from Switzerland, and we'll be getting it very soon. And we intend to immediately we get it, we'll be having a technical officials, that is the referee and judges training course, so as to adapt to the new scoring system and start applying it locally.
Now, Coach, let's just take a look at the screen and tell us about what was going on here, where the boxer was being told, look at the coach, and he's actually giving him some instructions.
Yeah.
And that's your assistant coach.
Yes.
Let's take a look at what they were doing. What was the instruction being given here about their placing and some of the little things they should change in their movement?
He was actually talking about moving like a panther. So that's what he was telling Mr. Karanja, or David Karanja.
Yes.
They should be moving like a panther while attacking, so to avoid, he was, if you noticed, during his fights, he was mostly bouncing so much, so it took him time to be able to counterattack fast. So he was telling him to move like a panther or slither like a snake while going in. Yes.
And also, he's telling him, look, make your things, your shoulders relaxed.
Yeah, he was not supposed to be like shrugging. He's supposed to just drop your shoulders and relax so that you can release those punches very fast without being tight or stiff. Yes.
So this is something also that you noticed in the build-up to the Olympics with Elia Joey, the super heavyweight, about posture and movement.
Yeah.
How, for example, the introduction of strength and conditioning, and also trying to get getting the physios involved, has it helped improve these boxers?
Wonderful. Those guys have really done a good job. I will always thank Mr. Kimani, the strength and conditioning coach from the Olympic Committee, and our physio. They really did a good job on Ajoy, and the way Ajoy performed or boxed against the world champion La Cruz was very, very good. That is for us who are looking at so many different aspects of the game, not just the end result. So I think they've done a really, really good job on Ajoy, and as much as they say he's old, which is true, but we think he can be able to win as a medal in the future events that he'll be taking part in. That is if he wins a slot in the national team.
Of which we are coming to, and the Jamaica Boxing Championship, that's our focus. 4 days of boxing here in Nairobi, and you were there observing all these boxers, 130 odd fights over 4 days. What were the things that you noticed with the boxers? Those who are in the national team setup, they've got an advantage over the rest. What about the others?
Well, definitely there's a lot of rust. Most of them are rusty, but the techniques, the technical ability is there for most of these boxers. When you look at young boxers like Mwinyi Kombo from Mombasa, you could see that it's only rust. So I think our president, thought it wisely when he brought up this Jamal Cup, so that we can now resume boxing, because we've been out of boxing for about 2 years now, and most of these boxers now are at a disadvantage point compared to the boxers who've been in the national team. But I think at the end of the day, by mid next year, we'll be having a very good team to represent us.
Now, for boxers who've moved up weights, I will pick one, Humphrey Ochieng.
Yes.
Nicknamed Jakababa.
Yeah.
What has been the transition for boxers who've moved up a weight? And I think I also saw that Nick Okoth also moved up a division.
Yes.
What are the differences that you see?
But we'll remember that before the Olympic weights,
yes,
Nick Okoth was still a lightweight.
He was, but he had to come down to 58.
To 57.
57.
Yes, for the Olympic weights. Because 60, the lightweight in the Olympic weight categories was so high for him. It has been a bit of a challenge to some of them. I think boxers like Cosby Uma are feeling it, because he was a natural middleweight and now he had to move to light heavyweight. He still has not adapted to the weight. I saw that in the just concluded Jamal Championships. And Others have enjoyed it, like Hezron Maganga in the cruiserweight. He's now comfortable there. Light heavyweight was a bit down for him, and he kept having problems reducing weight, making him very weak. I think now he's strong at the cruiserweight. So it has been, it's mixed.
And let's move on to the women's side. It looks like for some, I mean, there was a case of a referee stop contest in the case of Christine Ongare.
Yes. What
needs to be done to fill this gap? Because it looks like Christine's got no competition for her. Anyone who's in the national team basically is way above everybody else. What needs to be done here?
I'm glad you also observe the same, because we've had that problem with a lot of stakeholders. And we say that there had not been proper structures to enable continuity. So the gap between those at the top right now and those who are supposed to be filling in is so huge. So what we are doing as a federation now is to create those structures so that we can have our schoolboys and girls, our juniors, and then our youths who will definitely step up into the elite category. Once you have those structures set up properly, then you can have continuity, proper continuity. Once these ones are at the top, then you can give exposure to the number twos and so on and so forth. But you see that the current or the immediate championships that we have are so crucial. We cannot use them as exposure for these number twos who are still really way behind. So we need still to use the same boxers who are there at the top as we set up these structures. So it will take time. It cannot be an overnight thing. It takes time. So, and after, like, say, 3 or 4 years, we'll have that quality now that we want, and very good number twos and number threes.
The need to feel that is important. And for those who are number two, for example, in some of the men's competitions, they've got another opportunity at the Kisumu event of the Jamal Cup. Tell us about this one.
Well, like I always say, selection of the national team is a process. So this process began with the just concluded Jamal edition 1 of the Jamal Cup. We are going to Kisumu on 8th, 9th, 10th and 11th for edition 2.
Wow, Jamhuri Day weekend, Kisumu. There's a lot of boxing coming your way.
Yes, and it will be fireworks, I'm sure. We intend to have, it won't be, let's say, 2 boxers per team. It will be now a boxer per weight, per team, so that now we can have only quality. Yes, so the sifting program started with this one. And then later on, we'll have novices championships sometime in either late January or early February, and then the intermediate, so that to give a chance to the new boxers who will have passed the intermediate level now to come for Kenya Open, where now we can have Kenya Open for the new entrants and the rest of the guys who've been participating in the Jamal Cup competitions. That at the end of the day will give us now a clear picture of the boxers who are ready to represent us in the Commonwealth Games.
So let me just put this. You mentioned that you're going to allow, for example, if it is team police prisons, the Kenya Defence Forces, Kentra, Githurai 44, Kakamega County, Kisumu County.
Yeah.
Each of these, you've mentioned clearly, they will be allowed 1 boxer per division. Per weight division. What's this?
And only those who are above intermediate level.
Okay. From how then will you assess? Say if police have got 2 heavyweights.
Yes.
What's the kind of assessment that you would give the moment the proposed entrants are given to you?
It is very easy because we have records of all these boxers. We know their capabilities, and you know, in boxing it's a bit easy. It's not about selecting a good number 8 like in soccer or good number 10. The ring is there. All the good boxers step into the ring, and then they fight it out. We get the best and the runners-up. It's as simple as that. And then we'll also be looking at consistency. It might be you are lucky day and you get a lucky punch or something like that and win. But how consistent have you been? Are you in a position, you might win, but are you able to represent us in such a competition like the Commonwealth Games and get us a medal? So those are the few issues that we'll be looking at as we select that team. But first of all, first and foremost, everybody has to step onto the ring and fight it out for a slot.
The other one is some of the new training methods that you've introduced to the team. For those who are there boxing, I mean, there must be a sparring partner.
Yes.
What are some of the things you've seen when you've brought in, like for example, when you've got a tire and you tell them, according to your stance, put your foot in here and put it up, and there is you spar inside here. It's basically a no way out.
Yeah, we actually call it nowhere to run, because at some point in boxing, after all that movement and stuff, you might get your opponent at the corner, or his back against the ropes, or our back against the ropes. What do you need to do? At that time, you have to put your punches together and punch in bunches. So the only way to learn this is to have that kind of training where you have nowhere to run. So you have to defend yourself at the same position, and at the same time, you punch. So head movement and scoring happening at the same time without movement now. Just head movement, so you must be very keen. Your observation must be there, up there, and precision. So those are the key things that we learn when we are training like that.
Now, there's also the African Championships. First of all, what's the outlook, the overall assessment of Africa? And you mentioned African boxing is behind, but if you were to mention the competition in the various divisions at the upcoming African Championships, where are Kenya's prospects? Where do you see, challenges coming in from other African nations?
Well, the first thing we spoke about when we had a meeting with the AIBA president is that when holding these African Continental Championships, we need referee and judges from outside Africa, because we've always had problems with our brothers from the north when you're holding these tournaments, and especially in their countries there. So we'll be having referee and judges from outside Africa. That's a plus for us, because it gives us all of us a level playing field. And I think our main challenge may come from the same guys, North Africa, Morocco, Algeria, Egypt, but we'll be good to go. I'm sure we are going to win medals in the African Continental Championships.
Actually, you had the Zone 3 Championships earlier in the year. What do you see from countries like, I think Mozambique were invited, DR Congo, Uganda? We saw Rayton Okwiri eliminated at the African qualifiers by a Ugandan boxer. So what's the zone like at the moment?
The zone is tough. It's very good. In fact, we're having a zonal championship just before Commonwealth Games, which will also be a very good outing for us in preparation for Commonwealth Games. And Congo are coming up very well. Mozambique have very good women boxers, very, very good. They're actually highly ranked in the world. We saw one fight against our boxer Kinyi in the Olympics. But besides, there's also Morocco and Cameroon.
Yes.
They are doing very well as well, and they're getting very good exposures. So their standards are coming up. So it's going to be tough, even at the Zone 3 level. It's not going to be a walk in the park, but you're up for it.
The Women's World Championships in Turkey, they were supposed to have been held this month, but were delayed. With the weight divisions that are the new weight divisions by AIBA, what's the size of the Kenyan squad that you'd like to have, or are you going to have fewer numbers?
Well, we have so many ladies who are able to represent us. The problem is that most of them have not been exposed so much, yes. That is our major problem, and I think the postponement is a blessing in disguise, because as a federation we are going to start arranging for some regional events where we can expose our girls against, say, Uganda, Tanzania, Zambia and the likes, for them to get that necessary. It's very important. And most of them are rusty, except for those who are in the national team. And you see, now we have to involve also men boxers in their training, so that because people like Elizabeth and Diego didn't even have an opponent at the Jamal Cup Championship. So you see, it will be difficult for her to get proper sparring against these lower weights. So we'll have to involve some of our male boxers in their training to give them that age.
The edge.
Yes,
Okay,
you can see Christy
okay,
now.
Okay, so how do you do this? You have somebody in the 60, a woman in the 67. What weight of a male boxer would you pick?
Same weight.
Same weight.
67, yes.
So that means...
At that time, we don't say this is a female boxer or a male boxer. All these are boxers, same weight, they spar.
The other one that...
They have to be toughened.
They have to be
toughened.
No mercy in this sport, so that because when you get inside that ring, only he can stop that contest if he does, throw in the towel, or if he, as a referee, stops the contest, or you've got to win. Something else that everyone's talking, we've seen one competition, the Jamal Cup. What's the outlook? You also serve in the Boxing Federation of Kenya Executive Committee.
Yes.
What is the communication that you've received for this contact sport from the State Department for Sport about resumption of competitions?
Well, the most important thing is
the National League, as it was known.
We intend to have it next year, but we still have to follow all the protocols laid down by the Ministry of Health to combat COVID. And I think it will be very, very important to get more assistance from them, more advisories if necessary, so that these boxers can be active. 2 years is a long, long time. It has really affected us compared to the other top nations who kept training, kept having those bubble camps, which are very expensive for us to be able to have here. And I think once we have that league, consistency will come back and we'll be at the levels that are expected of us.
One of the things that we've seen with Mark Krumlep, the IBA president, and he visited Kenya, what are the opportunities that are there for the boxing ecosystem under the new IBA as they are reforming? We have got referees and judges, we've got coaching, and also in terms of equipment and infrastructure.
I think there's a lot of light at the end of the tunnel.
Is it an oncoming train?
Yeah, this one. No, it's not an oncoming train, because that will cause damage. Equipment, AIBA now is, if you ask, you get equipment. And they have introduced prize money for even the continental championships, and they intend to do that even at the regional championships. That is a plus, a huge plus for them. And I think you saw what happened during the Serbia World Championships. The numbers.
$200,000 per weight, per weight division. 100,000 for the gold,
and 50
for the silver, and the bronze medal is 25.
Two of them. So it was total 200 per division. And you could see the numbers. We had about 600 of the boxers showing up for that. So that is a very, very big plus for AIBA, and they said they're going to introduce it in the continental championships and other regional championships. So you see motivation, obviously these guys are getting motivated, and more boxers will be coming up, competition will be high, and ultimately the standards go up. When competition is high, the standards will definitely go up. So I think AIBA is on the right track. With the changes, they have introduced training courses where the referee and judges and the coaches won't be paying. We used to pay like $300 for certification. Now they waived that. So there will be no payments for those courses. All you need is to attend. That is a plus, another plus. During these continental championships, there will always be some training. So during, say, the Africa Continental Championships, we'll be able to take our referee and judges and some coaches for those trainings, so that we get everybody to the level that is expected, and that will help in our mantra of Ndoni Mashinani. When all these coaches are up to the level that is required, then it becomes easier for the federation, because we are sure that boxers coming up from the county levels, clubs at the counties, have the same quality or have the same culture that is going on at the top there. It becomes very difficult to handle boxers at the national team level who got it wrong at the basic level, at the foundations rather. When they didn't get the basics right, it becomes very difficult. Instead of polishing, you start teaching them again the basics.
Well,
so that takes time.
Yeah, the second coach of the national team I've had say that. The last one I've had say that was Bernard Lama. He was in charge of the Harambee Stars, and it ended up ugly. So Musa, as we close, tell us about Kisumu, the Jamal Cup that's going to be taking place on the Jamhuri Day weekend. The venue and, basically the competition times.
Jamal Cup will be on 8th, 9th, 10th and 11th of December. And I wish you guys could come, KBC, and cover it.
Okay.
Because I can promise you it will be fireworks that Kenyans actually need to watch.
Okay.
There's Kenyans who won't be in Kisumu.
All right, that's a curveball. What we'll do anyway, President Anthony Ombok can write to KBC and see what proposal the deputies could be there.
So I'm telling him that immediately I leave this place. So we'll be having it. It will be a 4-day tournament, like the one that was here, and it will only be strictly for boxers above intermediate, and maybe others that the federation think need to be given a second chance. Maybe they lost because of injuries or something like that.
Yes.
So after that, we'll now get a clear picture of our number 1, 2, and 3 so far, before we wait for the next year's events. We'll also be looking at our women, though there's not so much competition, but we'll also give them a chance. All those who are not able to make it to this one, to come for the Kisumu event, because the World Championship is not a walk in the park. We need to have serious boxers who are able to represent our country ably.
The venue specifically, which hall?
Ofafa Maringo Hall in Kisumu.
In Kisumu.
Yes.
Ofafa Maringo Hall, over that week running up to Jamhuri Day. That's where we're going to have the Kisumu leg of the Jamal Cup. Coach Musa Benjamin, thank you very much for giving us your time this morning after working with the boxers that early. The work continues as Kenya gears up for the Commonwealth Games, the African Championships, and also the Zone 3 Championships and the Women's World Championships in boxing. We take a short break, and when we get back, let's see what's been happening, get some views as to what's been going round in the world of football with John Agriotieno.